This conference will now be recorded.
Great. Do let me know once you're able to see my screen, guys. Come back here to the Azure portal. Okay.
Yes.
Now, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. Now, in this session, we'll do something different. Let's not begin directly. So, in a weekday, let's say we do not get a lot of time to, go ahead and recap topics. So today, what we're going to do is like, firstly, let's recap all the topics, and I'll be asking a few questions, guys. So please unmute yourself, and if you know the answer to it, please go ahead and feel free to discuss about it. Just in case if you don't know, you can ask further questions around it and etc. And why am I doing it? It's because this all the topics that we covered till now are very important from an interview perspective. Whenever you look at, let's say, the Azure subscriptions, or let's say the Azure resource groups or storage accounts and etc., they're very important from an interview perspective. So let's do a quick recap on what we have done till now. Okay, so what we did is like we began with something called as what is cloud and all these things, the very basics of it, like what is a public cloud, what is a private cloud, and what is a hybrid cloud and all that thing. And then we said what an Azure subscription is. Guys, can anyone give me a very small definition of what an Azure subscription is? Anyone? If you can unmute yourself and give me what a very brief description of what an Azure subscription is.
What do you want to? It's a free trial,
Okay.
and in that free trial, we just want to go and we wanna like it's have 30 days of free trial, and they're gonna give off 14,000 rupees,
Mhm.
where we can do all the works. It gonna be debited through the account. So that's
Okay. Okay. So is that only a free trial? Like, meaning, is the subscription only a free trial, or do we have any other models in the subscription?
uh, like uh, like in the subscription we have like we use for 2 users. We can use for the 2 users as
Mhm.
uh,
Okay. Fair enough. Guys, anyone wants to add to what Kiran has already said?
Azure subscription is like having a license
Okay.
to access the Azure services.
Great. Great. That's precisely said. Guys, anyone else? Anyone else want to add things to this? Okay. So what Srikant said is that
The
it's a license. Sorry.
free
Some.
trial is Avinash sir.
Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
Free free trial of Azure nothing but to adapt the Azure environment to the user
Mm-hmm.
to provide
Good.
that to understand what Azure is, how to create everything in free trial. He can learn who is new to the Azure. That's why
Exactly.
they're providing free trial.
Exactly. That's very well said. So, in a very short span, in a very short way, can I tell that Azure subscription enables a user to create something in Azure, enables a user to use the Azure portal. And you have different models of Azure subscriptions like free trial, which is one of the subscriptions that, as Avinash mentioned rightly, is given initially for the user to get adapted to, let's say, the Azure cloud. So all the services in free tier are actually free. So for, let's say, the first 30 days, you can go ahead and use them and see if the Azure cloud is for you or not. Right? And there are different kinds of subscription. Guys, can anyone remember what are the different kinds of Azure subscription, or what are the different kinds of subscription that Microsoft offers?
Pay as you go,
Okay.
student subscription.
Okay. Okay, great. So yes, that's true. So after free trail, you have pay as you go, you have student pass, you have MSDN, you have when you come down to, let's say, an organization, people would start using subscriptions like professional direct, enterprise support, and all these kind of subscriptions. Guys, anyone wants to add anything to this? Okay. So moving forward, we also said, okay, fine. We discussed about the Azure authentication model, and we said there is something called as an identity provider. Guys, can anyone remember what we discussed here? It's something called as Azure Active Directory, right? Can anyone remember what an Azure Active Directory is?
It was acts like a backend database,
Mm-hmm.
in which it gives access token, so the Chrome will catches whatever the username or password was given. So
Right,
we can access to the portal.
precisely. So that's true. Acts as a backend database, true. Gives the Chrome a cache, or gives the browser that you're using a cache, basically, so that, or an access token, so that you can authenticate yourself. Not only that, it also has users in it. Main importantly, you can define users and the roles of the users. Now, coming to the roles of the users, a very popular question of RBACs is, what are RBACs? How many types of RBACs are there in Azure? Tell us about anything that you know. So guys, my question to you all is, if I'm a user and I want to add one of my friend to the Azure subscription, can anyone tell me what kind of an RBAC would I require?
Owner,
Contributor.
account administrator.
Yes, correct. Akila was correct, Kiran. It is owner. So the difference between owner and a contributor is that contributor cannot add users while an owner can. Now, I don't want to do anything on the Azure portal. I just want to see what are the resources. So can anyone tell me what kind of a role that you can go
Reader.
ahead and assign to him? Yes,
Reader.
that's right. It's a reader role, basically, that you go ahead and give to someone, that so that they can go ahead and, let's say, see the subscriptions now, or see the resources. Now the question is, I have a user 1, who has an RBAC assigned at the subscription level. User 2 has an RBAC assigned at RG2 level, or a resource group called RG2 level. There are 10 resource groups in your subscription. Can you tell me what the user 1 can see and what the user 2 can see? Can anyone tell me what the user 1 can see and what the user 2 can see right now?
User 1 can see all the 10 subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And user 2 can see only the subscription assigned to him.
Very well said. So user 1 can see all the resource groups assigned to him, all the resource groups under that particular subscription. And user 2 can see only what? RG2, because he is only assigned a particular RBAC at the RG2 level. Right, Ramakrishna?
Yes.
Exactly. That's precisely what it is. Guys, anyone has any questions with these topics? Anything that I can take? Guys, if you have any questions, please, please go ahead and ask. I'll make sure to give my, best to answer that out. All right. Then what is a resource group? Guys, anyone, just give a very simple definition of what a resource group according to your understanding is.
Resource
It's
group
a
is nothing
logical
but a
namespace.
collection of resources.
Okay.
Logical namespace where you can create or store the resources.
Exactly. So yes, Chandra and Akila both were right. So it is a space that you can create in Azure to go ahead and, let's say, provision resources or a collection of resources, or a logical namespace that you can create on the cloud, under which you can stack all your resources out. So guys, can I have multiple resources? I mean, can I have multiple resource groups in my Azure subscription?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Of course.
And is there any limit to that?
No.
Okay, great. That's a right question. Sorry, that's a right answer. So yes, there are practically no limits to the number of resource groups that you can have in your subscription. But normally what happens is that in a real-time environment in an organization, how would they, really assign resources? So they would say, let's say RG1. Let's think of it as a data resource group. RG1 would have something called data resource group. Would be named as data resource group, and it can have resources like storage accounts or everything that is related to data, SQL databases, and all these things. You can have an RG2 that would say network RG, which will host everything that is related to the networking, like VNets, meaning virtual networks, virtual machines, and all these things. You can have RG3, which will host something like application resource group, which will have like application servers and all these things. So app servers and all these things. So normally this is one of the arrangement that you can give, or you can say RG1 belongs to developers, RG2 belongs to QS, RG3 belongs to DevOps. You can also have an arrangement like this, and you can assign RBACs on top of each and every RG, so that developers will have access to developer resource group, QAs will have access to QA, and vice versa. So this can be the other form of an arrangement. Very popular is something like this, because this is the way we maintain our infrastructure. And the maintenance of the infrastructure is a primary role, let's say, of being a DevOps engineer. There, apart from maintaining of infrastructure, there is also security, access controls, and all these things. So this is our primary, goal in order to go ahead and maintain resources. Maintain the infrastructure. So we maintain it in this way. So this is one of the arrangement that you can go for, guys. Now, after this, we looked at something called storage accounts. Now, what did I say, guys? Storage account is a specialist in what? Storing data that is unstructured in nature. Guys, can anyone give me an example of an unstructured data?
It's like a
Videos,
JPG file,
images.
videos, images, notes, word
Exactly.
file, movies.
Exactly. You correct. So
Can't
exactly.
find any information from that.
I'm sorry, Ramakrishna.
Data from which we can't get any information.
Exactly. So it's not exactly information. I would say it is relational data, meaning you can't relate the first data point to the second. So all these data that is hanging loose is known as an unstructured data. And storage account is what, guys? Storage account is a specialist in handling these things out, right? Meaning storage account is especially in place to handle data which is unstructured. Then what is the kind of redundancy that Azure offers me, just in case if there is a data loss? Guys, can anyone tell me what are the replication models available in Azure, and what would you go for?
LRS, GRS,
LRS, JRS,
GRS
ZRS,
and JRS.
RAGRS.
ZRS.
You can go to LRS, which is the cheapest.
Okay, but let's say I am not looking for some cheap option. I want to make sure that my data is available in all times, and just in case my primary endpoint goes down, my data should also be available from the secondary endpoint. Then what would be your suggestion?
GRS.
RAGRS.
Great. So Kiran, it is RAGRS. It's not
Bar-
GRS. Yeah, so correct. So GRS, and the biggest difference between GRS and RAGRS is that in an RAGRS model, you can go ahead and also read your data from a secondary endpoint. Okay. Now then, the other very popular question that normally we do ask in the interview is that I am, let's say, an organization, and my storage account is being very frequently visited by the clients, and my data is low. So what kind of an access tier would you suggest? Would it be hot or would it be cool?
Hot.
Very good. And in case I want to, let's say, apply an automated or let's say some kind of an automation so that after a period of time, my blobs that are sitting in hot move to cool, then what can you implement in the Azure storage?
Life cycle policy.
Life cycle
Exactly.
management.
Okay. And what is the maximum amount of policies that you can apply per a storage account? Guys, anyone?
100.
That's correct.
100.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, correct. That's correct. So you can apply a maximum of 100 policies in your lifecycle management, and within each policy, you can go for a maximum of 10 prefixes. So 100 and 10, meaning 100 policies in each and everything, 10 prefixes. So just remember this, guys. And second thing is that now I have a client whom I have given a URL to, let's say, access my data to that is sitting inside a blob storage. He complains me telling that, you know what, I am not able to access it because I see some error telling that, the resource is not found and etc. Can you probably tell me what is the issue or what can I do?
It may
The
be in the
access
private.
level, the access level is not in a proper way, so it should be
Hmm.
public used. That is called anonymous. But
Hmm.
in our case, it's set for the private, so other internet users unable to use that.
Great. That both Chandra and Akila have given the right answer. And if I don't want to change it to public, or if I don't want to change it to blob or container level access, but I still want my user to go ahead and access it, then what can I probably give him?
We need to create a access key like SAS or
Hmm.
any other access keys.
And implement in Microsoft Storage Explorer.
I'm sorry.
And implement in Microsoft Storage Explorer so other can see your access.
Sure, great. So guys, then what is the biggest difference between, let's say, an access key and a shared access signature?
Yeah, both are little bit different.
Hmm.
So in access key, we can define the time when they want.
Hmm.
But in SAS, I think it's not possible to set the timeline, so they can access unlimited until we change the key or delete it.
Okay. Guys, anything more thoughts on that?
This here is for means a bulk member can access the through SES, but
Mhm.
with the key there is a limited to whom we will provide they can access.
Okay. So it is the other way around. So an access key would give you unlimited access. A shared access signature, on the other hand, will give you a very limited access. So an access key, you won't be able to define what is the time for which it will be active and how long will it be active and stuff like that. But in a shared access signature is where you can, define what is the time, for how much time will it be alive and all that stuff. You can define it in the shared access signature. So it's just the opposite, guys. So yes, the concept is good. Like you all are following the class. There is a good concept, but please make sure that after each and every concept, please read the Microsoft documentations also, which will help you all understand this more further. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So with that, let's start the today's topic. Now, one thing about storage account is that we have discussed that this is a specialist in storing unstructured data, and we have stored a lot of data in this storage account. And we have also seen how you can access the data and how you can secure your data by implementing something called as access levels, where we had private, blob, and container, three different access levels also we had, and we also tested all the three, and we have seen how the state of the data can vary. Apart from that, we have also seen different replication models and all. We have seen different replication models and all these things out. Now, one of the other services that kind of evolved during the entire period while the creation of storage account and while the evolution of storage account is called a static website. Now, what do I mean by static website? Now, in general, what do I mean by static? Now, static is where your content doesn't change over a period of time. Static is where your data doesn't change a lot over a period of time, and this is called a static. For example, let's say people write blogs, right? They write a lot of blogs and all these things, and these blogs also needs to be hosted over the internet. Or let's say just a very small, very simple site, okay, for displaying your products, which doesn't change over a period of time. All you need is just a very small website with, let's say, with spending minimum amount of cost on it. Then there are actually a lot of services out there in the market like WordPress, like web servers offered by AWS and etc. But what Microsoft did in a very different way is that it said, you know what, you do not have to actually go for an application server to make sure your code is hosted. Rather, you can come down to storage account. I will here give you something called as a static website option. And all the redundancy options kind of apply to even the static website option. Then what is a static website option and how can a user leverage this out? Now, as and when you click this something called a static website, it says, you know what, enable static website and etc, etc, etc. You can, click here on learn more, and this will directly take you to the documentation page, and you can, learn more about the static website out here. But the thing is, you'll have to click on enable this one firstly. So as and when you do enable, it will ask you what is the index document name, what is the error document path. Now, what is an index document? What is all that stuff? Generally, when you create any content, right? When you create, let's say, a content in a language called HTML and etc., you will have one file which is called index.html or main.html, something like that, which will be the source directory of your entire website, meaning which will be a single point of reference for your entire website. Meaning it's nothing like an index of, let's say, a textbook, which will have paths like, okay, fine, if you click here, you'll go here. If you click here, you'll go here, and something like that. So it's just asking me what is the index document page. For example, I just give it index.html. I just give it a very sample name out here. And error, I don't have an error page, but just to fill this up, I am saying error.html. And I say save. Now, as in when I do a save, it says, you know what? You now have a static website created, meaning you now have a URL created from where you can host your static website. Now, what does this look more? Meaning, if I go to, let's say, the containers, you have a container that got created called $web. What is there inside this container? Actually, nothing. So you have a container that just got created because I clicked on something called enable static website. As and when I clicked on enable static website, it went ahead and it just created a dummy container for me. Now, what can I do with this particular URL? I'll say, okay, fine, I'll take this URL I'll see what is there inside this particular URL out here. Says, you know what, the requested content does not exist because there isn't anything inside it. Meaning, when you click on this website called test something something dot web dot core dot windows dot net, it knows that this is an Azure storage account, or this is, let's say, a website hosted out of the Azure storage account. And what this URL is doing is that it is going inside a container called $web. It's trying to go inside a container called $web, and it's trying to see whether it has any content in there with the name what, index.html, because that's what is my index page, right? It's checking whether I have something called index.html. I don't have anything called index.html, so it's just throwing me an error telling me that, you know what, I don't see this particular document in there. So I don't understand what you're requesting for because the entire container is empty. Now then, what we can do with this? Just say download free HTML templates. You have a lot of HTML templates out there, and this is a website that I usually visit, which is called freecss.com. As in, when you do it, you have like tens and thousands of templates out here. Like, you have a lot of templates out here, and I'll just pick up, let's say, the first one. I'll go ahead, I'll say okay, fine, download. It's a very simple file, it doesn't take a lot of space. So I said download. Now I'll just go into the folder where it got downloaded, and I'll just extract it. I'll just say extract to something like this, and it did extract it. Now it says universe and all that stuff, and inside this folder you have a lot of HTML pages out here, and you have a lot of other files also, and you have something called index.html, which is, let's say, our main page, right? Now all I have to do is take the entire content out there in this particular folder and put it inside this particular container. How do I do it? Let me go back and let me take an access key from this. I'll just say access key. I'll just say show key. I'll just say copy the particular connection string. I'll go to my Microsoft Storage Explorer. I'll say connect, and I'll say okay, fine. Use a connection string. Say next. Put my connection string in here, and I'll just to make sure I give a unique display name. I'll just say this is web static content. I'll say next. I'll say connect. And as in when I do it, this will try to establish a connection. It'll try to authenticate my entire access tokens and etc. And after that, it just said, okay, fine, you are connected to this particular storage account. Now what I'm going to do, I'll just go into that particular container called the $web. I'll say upload, and I'll firstly say upload the folder, because I have a couple of folders inside it. So I have an asset and I have a sample folder inside it. So I'll say fine, select this one out. I'll say okay, fine, there is something called as downloads, and this is the one. I'll just select folder, upload this out. So it will just take like a couple of seconds to go ahead and upload this out completely. And this is done. You have a folder like this. Then upload the other folder which you had. Which is sample. Also upload this out. This is done. Now I have a couple of files in there, so I'll also go ahead and upload that out. So it's firstly going ahead and looking what are the items, and it went ahead and uploaded everything out there. Now I have uploaded, I am like good enough right now, I am like ready. And also this is getting reflected in my storage account. All these are there in this particular thing called $web. Now what can I do with this? I'll now go to my URL again, which is called static website out here. And I get a complete website out here. I get a complete website which is actually working, which has clickable links and which is actually working out here. And here you can see, contact me, and there is like the phone number and all these things out. I can also change this. How can I change this? Like, not really important, but if you let's say if you want to change your content, you just need to come and you just need to visit that particular file that hosts your contact. This is called contact.html, and you can go ahead and edit this out. This is like whole HTML basically out here, and all you need to do is like just edit your phone number out there or edit the contact information. For example, this is the contact information page out here. I'll just say something like this, save it. See this, guys? So the thing here is that when you hit this particular URL, when you hit this particular contact.html, this is trying to communicate with your Azure blob storage, and it is trying to take the content, or it is trying to just stream the content out here and just throw it onto the internet. Now this URL will work for anyone in the world. You can just give this website, and if you know how to develop HTML, you can just create an entire website of your own, and it doesn't really take a lot of time to, let's say, modify the entire content out here. You can just take this out and you can just go ahead and give this to, let's say, anyone in the world, and they'll be able to see all your content out here. Guys, any questions here? Anything that I can take?
For this, we can use file share.
No, you will not be able to use file share. The thing is, file share is only for storing your files, whereas static website is an option that will enable this container called $web.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Akila?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so you cannot use file share to host this particular thing. You need to enable static website option out here, which is dedicatedly for this reason, to, let's say, create your websites and all that stuff. But is it like a dynamic website? Not really. It's a very static website as such, where your content isn't changing a lot, and when you don't have a lot of moving parts, like let's say a backend database for transactions. Let's say not complicated website. It's a very simple website out there. This can be given just for blogs, or just to, let's say, for just displaying out your business and how can people contact you and everything. Yes, guys, any questions here with this one?
Yeah, Kiran. So can we map this to the external domain name?
Yes, you can map
Like,
it to the external domain name. You will be able to do
so
a custom domain mapping out here.
okay, so that is done by in the Active Directory, or it's where
No, you'll have to take, let's say, an external domain register like GoDaddy and etc. You'll have to map this in there, because they would provide you the DNS naming service.
okay, from their portal only we need to do.
Yeah, from their portal you need to do.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I mean, you can do it from Azure also, but it gets a little complicated to basically go ahead and do all the DNS mappings. So it's easier when you go for an external domain.
Okay.
So when you do a
Okay, thanks.
DNS mapping, right, then this website can, be your own DNS, like something like www.xyz.com.
Right.
Okay, guys, any further questions with this one? Okay, great. So this is about, let's say, a static website delivery. Like how do you, let's say, create a very static content out there and stream it out there on the internet? Good enough, like good enough feature where you can, just go ahead and host your simple HTML code or CSS or JavaScript, whatever you do have, and which is like, not having a lot of moving parts, which does not have, let's say, a backend database, transactions and all these things, which is very simple website. You can use the Azure storage service, which will be available at a very minimal cost. Because if you ask anyone that, if you want to host your website and etc., it'll actually take good amount of cost. Like if you want to use, let's say, an external provider and etc. and do it a lot, it'll take a good amount of cost. But with storage account, right, which is like, let's say, if you go for an LRS tier, now how much is it going to cost you if you run it, let's say, for the entire 24/7? If you take, let's say, the Azure, subsidized rate, it'll cost you somewhere around 3 or 4,000 per month, especially when you run it, let's say, in an LRS tier. So this is how, if you're not using storage services for any other purpose, just for the static website, so it's going to cost you as minimal as this. So this service today is like, catching a lot of momentum, because a lot of people are actually hosting their websites out from Azure and doing a custom domain mapping, and so that they will have a dedicated website, just to display people about their business and etc. Right now, one thing in the entire model that I don't like personally is that, where have we created the storage account, guys? It's created in a location called East US, and I have a secondary called West US. Now, I have worked for a lot of projects till now, and in most of the cases, even Indian clients actually go ahead and create their account or create their storages in a location like East US and etc. Why? Because Azure offers something called as region pairs, right? This is something that we discussed earlier, that you have something called as zone redundancy offered in those regions, and the service out there is better. So I am basically a business owner who wants to, let's say, give my images out there on the web and wants people to come into my storage account to visit the images and etc. Fair enough. I say, okay, fine. I want to basically host my website, or I want to basically host my data in a region that supports, a better amount of redundancy. Then Microsoft says, you know what, I recommend you to go for East US2 and etc. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that model. So what I do is, like, I go ahead and host my website, let's say, in East US2. Host my data, let's say, in East US2. So this is my storage account that is actually sitting in a location called East US2. And I've implemented redundancy and all these things out. And I am basically putting some data into it. And I made sure my containers are, let's say, sitting in a blob access level for now. Let's imagine, so that all the users can access this. Let's imagine this is a public, this is more for the public. Now, the thing is, let's say you have 4 different users from 4 different countries. User 1 is from USA. User 1 is very happy to visit your link, go to your storage account. So whenever the user 1 basically hits your link, right, he'll be directed to that storage account, and the image will be redirected to him. So image or whatever the content is that you want him to want to deliver it to him, it'll go back and hit the customer. The customer will get the image, but the time for the entire transaction, meaning the user coming and hitting your link and then getting the image back, is actually less, because this customer is sitting where, in USA. Let's take a customer in UK. This customer will experience more time when compared to a customer sitting in USA. Simple maths, right? Because greater the distance, greater is the time of delivery. Customer sitting in India, far more worse, because the internet speeds here are not that great when compared to more advanced countries like USA and UK. So the latency, meaning I have to make 1,000-mile journey every day to just visit my to just get my image. And let's say someone sitting in Australia, more time. So the thing is that the farther you are or the greater the distance between you and the storage account, the greater would be the latency, right? Simple math. But the thing here is that I am paying the same amount of cost to you. So is someone from USA, so is someone from UK, so is someone from Australia. I am paying the same amount of cost to my content provider, which let's say is an owner of this particular storage account. But why do I get a differential treatment? Meaning, why does someone who's sitting in USA take a greater advantage just because he is geographically close to the data center? First question that is posed by a user. Secondly, by a cloud provider is that, you know what? Now it is not 4 users. My website is being accessed by, let's say, 4 lakh users that are sitting across the world. Each and every second, I am getting somewhere around 10 lakh requests. Possible, right? Very quite possible. And everything is hitting this particular storage account. Meaning everything is hitting a server that is actually sitting in East US 2. Because all your storages and everything, they run from a server, right? That is sitting in a data center that is, let's say, hosted out of East US 2. Now imagine the amount of maintenance cost on this particular server. Maintenance and the amount of money that you actually have to pay. Two things. So you are losing your business on one end because your users are not experiencing the fastest internet connection and etc. And you are not making, or you're basically shelling out a lot of money for maintenance and etc. Now, this is not okay with a lot of cloud providers. They said, you know what? It's not okay to go ahead with this particular model. So what can be the other option? The other option, of course, is that if you are a giant company, you wouldn't even think about this model. You wouldn't even, let's say, think about this model. You will basically establish storage accounts in all over the world and make sure that the customers are, fetch data from their own storage, their own regional storage accounts. That is something that you could do. But I'm not a huge business. I do not have so much of revenue. And I cannot ask my customer to come close to the data center. I cannot do that. Rather, I need to take my data center close to the business. I need to make sure that my data center is basically close to the business. This is called point of presence, POP, point of presence of your business. Now, is there then any other logic, or is there then basically any other thing that I can do to, let's say, take my business close to my customer without having to spend a lot of money? Yes. You have something called as a concept of edge servers, EDGE servers, edge. Or in Azure terminology, these are called CDN, Content Delivery Network. CDNs are a way to accelerate your content delivery. Meaning what now happens is if I implement a CDN, let's take all these arrows out and let's put my CDNs into picture. Now, how does a CDN look like? Where is that diagram? Something like this. These are all edge servers that are sitting close to the customers. The customers would connect to this particular edge server, and the edge server will be connected to your storage account. All the edge servers will be connected to your storage account right now, and the customers will not have to travel every day that long to go get their data. They only have to go to the edge server that is sitting close to them. They only have to go to the edge server that is actually sitting close to them, and their content would be delivered. Now, isn't this a great option? Isn't this not a two-way advantage? Firstly, I am experiencing a very accelerated content delivery. Secondly, I do not have to spend so much of maintenance out here. This model is also called a hub and spoke model. This is your hub. All these are the edge servers. Will this take a lot of cost? No, not really. Why? Because Microsoft only has a few edge servers out there, and Microsoft has partnered with companies like Verizon in order to provide you these edge servers out. So how do you create one out here? Then the question is, how do you create? Now, I'll just go here. I'll just say, okay, fine, create a new thing out here. I'll say this is a test RG, and just go over and quickly create a storage account out there. So this resource group is okay. I'll say something like this, something with a unique name, so that I just pick that one out. Just say review and create, and create this out. And while the storage account is getting created, let me go ahead and create something called CDN profile. I already have one created so that I can avoid time. I can avoid the expenditure of time out here. I can say, okay, fine. What will it ask me right now? Firstly, resource group. So I'll say, okay, fine. This is a resource group that I want to put in. Secondly, I'll say the name of the edge server. So I'll say this is a test edge server 2Z000. So the name is unique. And here, guys, the region is global. You do not have to basically go ahead and select a region out here. Edge servers are a global resource. And I'll say, okay, fine. Go ahead and choose from one of the pricing tiers. These are the service providers of Azure CDNs. Standard Microsoft, standard Verizon, standard Akamai, premium Verizon. Each and every model has its own pros and cons. We'll discuss about what they are. For now, I'll go ahead and select, it is standard Microsoft. If you want to see what are the pricing, you can just go ahead and say, view this one, and it'll tell you what do you get with this and what is, let's say, the pricing that is available out here. I'll say, okay, fine, this is what it is. Tags, not mandatory. Review and go ahead and create this out. So it will go ahead and let's say create me an edge server out there. So I have created an edge server, but I have not linked it to my storage account yet. Right? How do you link it? Let's see that. And as such, I have a storage account that got created. So let me go ahead and quickly create a container inside it and let's say deploy something inside it, or let's say create something inside it. I'll just say basically upload all these images which are of high resolution. It'll take some time to go ahead and let's say upload this out. And my edge server also should have been created by now. Storage account deployment has succeeded. Yes, that's good. Let me go ahead and see how my edge server really looks like. Now this is the edge server, or this is, let's say, a CDN profile that I kind of created out. I said, okay, fine, you know what? I have a CDN profile, but I haven't gone ahead and linked the CDN profile to the Azure storage account. How do I link it? Just say add an endpoint. And now we'll say, okay, fine. I now understand that you want to add an endpoint. Now, how does your edge server really look like? It's called test edge server. I'll just take the same name, dot Azure Edge .net. It is very simple, Azure Edge .net. Now it's asking me, what is your origin? Like, can you tell me what is the data source? I'll say it is an Azure storage. You can also have an Azure static website also. And you can have a custom origin, meaning if you have your data basically hosted out of an other cloud provider, like an AWS or a Google Cloud platform, you can also go ahead and use that particular origin as well. Now I have an Azure storage account. I'll just select an Azure storage. Now it's asking me what is the storage account that you have. Now I have like 4 storage accounts. This is the one that I have created right now. I'll say fine, this is the storage account. Now it's asking me what is the origin path. Now I can either give an origin path or I can do not want to. What exactly is an origin path? Very simple. Okay, let me take this out. I have a resource group, something like this one, and I have a VMSS storage account out here, and I have a couple of containers out here. Inside one of the container, if I go into it and if I select any of the image, if I look at the URL of this particular image, right, it's gonna look something like this. So till here it is the storage account /test as my container, and inside which is the images. So I can say, you know what, I want an edge server only for this particular container. You can have it for the entire storage account also, not a mandate that you need to have this particular container out here. But if you want to have only that particular container, then go ahead and say /test. So what is going to happen is that this is your edge server website right now, or this is the CDN link right now, which is test edge server 2zz something dot azureedge.net. And whenever you click this, it will go to an endpoint something like vmss dot something 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 /test. This is how your edge server will actually get created. And all you need to do is optimize for yes general web delivery. I'll say add. As in when you do an add, you will have an endpoint that will get here. You will have an endpoint that will get reflected out here. Now, for Microsoft to deliver you these edge servers to different locations out here, it's going to take somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes of time. It will create it and it will basically make sure that the edge server is up and running. Until that time, let's not wait till that time, because I already have created something like this. It takes about 10 minutes, but in actual it takes about 20 to 25 in order to, let's say, provision your resources. So I have done a very similar thing with this storage account also. So I have a container which is called test, which has, let's say, a lot of sample images out here. And I went ahead and I provisioned something called as an edge server, or an, let's say, and a CDN profile. And I have an endpoint. And after the endpoint is provisioned, this is how it will look like. You'll say, you know what, okay, fine. This is the test something dot azure edge.net. You can copy the URL. And I said the origin host was /test, because this is what my origin host actually looked like. This is my host account, and I have a container inside it called test. And all my data is hosted out of this particular test container. So if I want to, let's say, see this image out, let's say like something called sample-2 /JPG. All I need to do is put a / and say sample-2 /JPG. Take this out. And I will be delivered an image out here. Now, how does this really help me? I've again opened my developer tool out here. And if I load this image, the time it took me was somewhere around 2.51 seconds. And your edge servers are very intelligent to cache the data. So the next time your time actually would come down, it'll reduce a lot, depending upon, of course, your internet connectivity and everything. Now, if you make sure, or if you basically fetch this image from the storage account directly, the time for delivery would be a lot of time. I mean, would be greater when compared to the one that edge server is giving you. Meaning, what edge servers are doing out here is that if I am the first person in the entire country to visit your Azure storage account and to fetch an image out of it, the request is going from India to East US 2, and in return, the request is getting cached in this particular edge server. All your images are stored in that particular edge server and then being delivered to you. So if you are, let's say, the second person that is visiting this particular storage account to get that particular image, you don't have to go all the way to storage account. You just will be directed to this particular edge server and your image will be delivered to you. This is what a mechanism what the edge server actually follows. And this will improve your content delivery tens and thousands of times. Like, we use a lot of edge servers out there. And what is this doing essentially is that it's cutting my cost to a very larger extent. Like, I do not really have to invest so much, and I'm also retaining a lot of customers out there. So this is the entire concept of how the edge server is implemented. And I will urge you all to please go ahead and read the documentation for the edge server. Understand what are the options that are available out here. Now, if you go into an edge server, there's actually a lot of options out here, like custom domains, compression, geo-filtering, and all these things. Please go ahead, look at it, and please come on a Monday to ask me if there are any questions, and we can discuss more on this. Guys, do you all right now have any questions with this particular topic, with the entire content? Did everyone follow this out? Guys, any questions? Did you all understand this concept, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Guys, any questions that I can take?
Yeah, Kiran.
Yeah,
In
Shrikant.
what way? In what way
Yeah.
we are reducing the maintenance cost in this concept?
So in reducing the maintenance cost, I mean, if you have only one central server, right, then all your requests are hitting to this particular storage account. So what is going to happen over a period of time is that your content delivery, the mechanism you're delivering it, will take a lot of time more, because you are right now fetching not one but tens and thousands of requests from just one particular storage account. So when you're not doing it, when you're not implementing just one particular storage account and people around it, when you're basically delivering and distributing your content and making a hub and spoke model, what you're doing essentially is implementing something called edge servers in the point of presence of your business. So people right now will not hit your storage account directly. So the number of requests that are actually coming to your storage account have reduced. So in that way, you do not have to maintain this, or in that way, you do not have to, let's say, pay more to Azure. Did that answer your question, Srikanth?
Yeah, definitely. And in this way, maybe we need to spend more money on this creating this
No,
concept.
actually, this resource is actually very cheaper. Reason being, it is not directly, given out by Microsoft. It is given by third parties like Verizon, third parties like Akamai, and etc. So you directly do not have to, spend a lot of money. And edge servers are such that, let's say you are a customer for India from India, and only you have a lot of traffic that is coming from India. So Microsoft automatically creates a very sample edge server out there puts your content in there and serve and delivers your content. You do not have all these things that are coming out. Only if someone is coming from USA, then your edge server will be provisioned. So it's just like a pay as you go model.
Okay, got it.
Guys, any questions that I can take? Did everyone understand this concept, guys? Or did anyone not understand it?
How will the second user retrieve the edge server data from the first user?
So it is not the second user retrieving the data from the first user. Rather, if there is a second user out here, he will directly go to this particular link. Meaning, now you will not give the link, you will not give this link to your user. You will rather give this link to your users. So what this will happen is that your user will not directly hit this particular endpoint. They'll be forced to hit the edge servers. So all your images will be cached in this particular edge server out here. So users do not have to come here as such. Does that answer your question, Akila?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, if what
So,
if
Kiran,
edge server is not working, like if the edge server is down, so then again it got the storage account like what you told before.
No,
First,
if the edge server is down, right? So
Mhm,
the edge server can only be down in one condition,
mhm,
where your storage account is down. Because your edge server is nothing but a replica of your storage account. So if your edge server is down, meaning your backend storage is also down. So if your
okay,
backend storage is down, then simple answer is that your customers will not basically see that particular service out there. But also edge servers also do have, let's say, an SLA, basically what Microsoft sticks with. So yes, they are pretty resilient in that way. So you have a good amount of dependency on them.
okay.
so Kiran, actually Microsoft is charging for request-based mode, number of requests.
Correct.
So in that case, if we are creating edge servers, the content will be coming to the edge server. So the
Correct.
traffic is adjacent to the Microsoft server in
Correct.
Azure.
Correct.
So in that case, it will be the last to Azure Microsoft.
Not really. So for every request which will hit to the edge server, you'll almost be charged the same thing that you basically hit a storage account. So these companies, right, like Verizon and etc., will be indirectly paying to Microsoft. So it is that model in which they operate. So it's a win-win situation for both of them. Guys, if there are no more questions, can we call it a day today? And
Sure, thanks,
please
Kiran.
practice. Yeah, no problem, Chandra. Please practice these concepts, guys, and please make sure to read the documentation again and again. Please read the documentations because they have a lot of information, and documentations kind of get evolved on a daily basis. So they keep adding a new content, they keep editing the content that is already in there. And a lot of interview questions are actually picked up from the Azure, I mean from the Microsoft documentations only. So please make sure to give it a review. Please make sure to skim it across, and please do ask me a lot of questions whenever and wherever possible. With that, let's put an end to today's session, guys, and have a great weekend ahead, and hope to see you all on Monday. Please revise every concepts that we've gone over the week, and if you all have any doubts, please write it down and please ask it in the class.